the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rangers Journal. My name is Doug, and we are hot off the end of the transfer window slamming down, as we are legally obliged to say, or slamming closed, I think is the exact vernacular. We had a fairly exciting night last night, not only in transfers, but the channel went over the 4,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. So once again, I said massive thank you to everyone last night, and once again, massive thank you to everyone who not only tuned in and watched, whether you were in or out or there for a while, but also everyone, of course, that are new subscribers. Welcome to the channel. We put out videos 5 nights a week, sometimes even 6 or 7 nights a week, depending on what's going on. Pre and post-match content, as well as various bits and bobs and shows that we do on tactics, scouting, and looking at the opposition. So there's plenty to find on the channel, plenty old videos on the channel as well. And I'm very happy to kick off this show with 2 brand new members to the channel. Ricky Stewart has become a YouTube member, so massive shout out to you, Ricky. Thank you very much for joining. And also the wonderfully named Raskin Socks, which I think is Ross. So welcome, Ross, to becoming a member of the channel. There are a few videos that you might not have seen already that will be heading there for you. There are some member stuff there. We try and do members things now and again when we can. So thank you, both of you, for joining the membership there. Big thank you there to Juicy Beer Gaming. This channel is elite. We try our best. Thank you very much for the compliment. And thank you to everyone who is here tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about the squad. Obviously, we've, as I say, just come hot off the transfer window, so we're going to have a look at the squad, how it fares now, compare it a little bit to what was before, and just generally chat about how we think things are poised for Russell Martin to push forward. I've got with me tonight 2 great guys who are going to come over, and neither of which had the opportunity to join us last night, so we've got some brand new opinions, fresh views to bring with you. So first of all, welcome, John. John, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Evening. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to some interesting chat on this.
Absolutely. And of course, the one and only, the man, the myth, maybe the legend. We'll see. We've got Dave. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. It's an exciting night last night, along with maybe a bit of relief that the window is now closed, and we can stop worrying about transfer rumours, start getting into truly rating them like we're about to do here.
Absolutely. We comment there from John. Did Scotty stay up till 2 in the morning to get to 2,000? He would have done if that's what it would took, but we were really lucky. We were aiming to hit the 4,000 before midnight, and we got there at 11:59. And I think we actually ended at 4,003 at that point. So he didn't quite have to go all the way till 2 in the morning, but he would have done. It was Scotty's. He was a man with a mission, and happily he got there. So. Yeah, great stuff there. Evening there, Blue Jay. Thanks for tuning in. Seeing a couple of familiar names, Curry, Linden, in there. So good stuff. Welcome, guys. So first of all, then we'll have a wee look at, as I say, the business that we did. So I've got some slides from last night in terms of, first of all, the arrivals. John, one thing that I was obviously updating these as we kind of went, and had them in advance. For last night, and one of the things that both this and the departure slide kind of really struck home for me was that we've really put in a shift this window. That's a huge amount of people. You can make an entire team all in proper positions out of the players that have gone out that and a subs bench, and similarly with the players out, it's a massive list. So we've really had a turnover in this window.
Yeah, it's been really good to see. I think a number of years have went by, we've seen little movement in terms of real kind of squad rotation, first team rotation in terms of players. So it's been nice to see that actually new players coming in, first 11 players. So real change in terms of the first team, but good squad options now, and getting a kind of a bit more youth or younger players into the team. So I know there's been a real cry for experience in there, but actually looking at that younger profile has been good, and I've been quite excited by that over the summer.
Absolutely. If you were to take your pick out of the group there, who would you say is the one that excites you the most?
Yeah, Majowski's interesting. He's been here before, so there should be kind of a good route to hitting the ground running with him. Antman does excite me if we can use him correctly. I was kind of disappointed he didn't play on Sunday because we changed things up a bit in terms of going a wee bit more direct at times. And for the one guy who just wants to get in behind, use his pace, we kind of missed him. I thought him starting would be really good. So if we can use him right, I think Antman could be a real player for us.
Absolutely. And if I come to you, Dave, in terms of arrivals there, I'll put the same question to you. Is there anyone in particular there that excites you? And what's your thoughts in general on the sort of the group we've brought in?
Yeah, so I guess the first noticeable thing is obviously there's one man that's going to appear on 2 lists tonight. So Oscar Cortez obviously came in and then went off out again on loan. I think on the wider window, it's the first time in a few years I've come out feeling like we genuinely have rebuilt. We've talked about it every season. We've said, there's a need to replace a lot of these players. Ultimately, it's never really transpired, and you've still kind of had that same heart of the team almost that you had the season before. This season, I think we're a totally different team. As for who interests me, probably Gassama and Antman, I would say. Gassama, by all accounts, we were very lucky to get for the price that we did. I think you saw in his first few appearances why that might be the case. Antman came with a pretty good pedigree from over in Holland. So I think the two of them have got the potential to be really good signings. I guess the problem is at the minute, a lot of people will be watching what we're seeing on the pitch, not so much the guys that just signed last night, but the other ones, and they'll be wondering if that's true. And I think John came out with a very interesting point there. A lot of it comes down to how we use these guys, how we utilise them in the team. Very early to be making kind of final decisions on anyone. And I guess a lot of that depends, does Martin's system eventually click? Is he even still the manager? There's a whole kind of range of questions there, but on paper, this should be a good group of players.
Yep, I agree with that. I think the majority have shown us something so far of the ones that obviously have been in the door. As much as obviously performances overall have been up and down. I think there's interest in the new guys as well. For me, Oliver Antman is one that I'd seen a little bit before, and as I say, I think he's got a lot to offer. And Gassam I didn't know before, but has obviously shown us quite the spark coming in. So I think as combined wingers, they could be a really potent combination. John, a lot of the deadline day news was about Youssef Chermiti. Obviously, this is a £8 million signing that we've made with $2 million in add-ons. So potentially, fingers crossed. It feels weird to want to pay more, but if he does well, then that means we'll pay more money. So fingers crossed, he becomes a £10 million player. It's our biggest layout in a significant amount of time since Ryan Kent, and our second biggest signing in our history behind Tore Andre Flo. Obviously, there's a lot of news behind that, primarily given sort of the lack of sort of evidence there that he's necessarily going to be worth that kind of money. What were your thoughts on bringing in Chermiti?
One of a bit of worry, I think. Just looking at the base numbers of an expensive signing, 2 years without a lot of game time, no goals in sight. Surprising, given we've been talking about this data-driven approach and how we're going to look at signings. And a lot of the window has been going down to the market down south, and you're going to pay a premium there. So you kind of expected the kind of transfer fee that we're paying. But when you look at, is that the best use of that money for a striker who could come in and maybe guarantee us a bit more goals? I don't know. I don't know enough about him, having not seen enough of him. So, like you say, I'm hoping that we're paying £10 million and in 18 months' time we're worried about how big Everton's sell-on clause in because he's doing so well for us. Get behind him. I hope that he's starting up front against Hearts and he's putting the ball at the back of the net. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And who do you think in the list for you represents the best value from what we've seen so far? Who do you think is going to turn into the best value?
Oh, Lyle Cameron. I think for a kind of Bosman style transfer, a free transfer. I think he's got what it takes to do really well for us in time, and I think he will prove to be the best value.
Absolutely, of course, he's sitting there to be confirmed. As far as I'm aware, we haven't. We've not had the details about his fee as of yet. Although I would assume it'll probably be in region of what we paid for Barron, possibly slightly more because Cameron played more and was a bigger part of Dundee than Cameron than Barron was Aberdeen, I think. But it won't be a significant amount, that's for certain. Dave, I'll put the same sort of two questions to you, and I'll just maybe add the extra. John touched on the idea of data-driven recruitment. Is this a player that we have to have a bit of faith in the hierarchy, in that he's not got the things that we as fans normally look at in terms of goals, assists, and sort of the more maybe basics like that, and maybe have to trust that they've obviously got a wealth of data, or will have a wealth of data behind them, and that they're maybe looking at a much deeper level at this kid and going, there's more there than we know. Yellow card.
Yep. I think yes, they are. So let's take the fee first off. I think that's a massive gamble, right? And the reason for that, I'm quite convinced they're looking at data metrics that we don't see. You think of those kind of rumours of Yefte to Chelsea, and we were all sat there thinking, really, Chelsea are going to buy this guy? There's a lot of individual metrics that you can bury down into, and someone may look very good there. So, we're talking about Chermiti. Look at his physicality. That's probably going to be quite well suited for Scotland. Someone, Airwolf, called out his aerial duel rankings. So again, they're pretty good. So you're instantly starting to see that, in theory, right, this should be someone that's able to perform in Scotland. Now, that's a lovely theory. 8 million is a hell of a lot of money for Rangers Football Club. Right? I don't care what people say. I know everyone's given it we're minted and all this, but we still have to live in financial reality here. So 8 million is an awful lot of money. And for me, I think you have to call it a gamble at this stage. Now, this could work out really well. He could settle down, get past the injuries, start knocking in the goals, show some of that form that he did that earned him his move to Everton. And, as you guys said, we're talking about how big Everton's sell-on fee is, or he could be a dud. And at that point, 8 million's not really the kind of money that Rangers can afford to write off, especially when you think in recent history, we also paid 6 million for Danilo, who, let's be honest, for all intents and purposes, we're going to be writing a hell of a lot of that off. There's also the question for me how Martin kind of accommodates both Miovski and Journey. Not Journey, sorry, I wish it was Journey. Chermiti. So, does he start playing two up top? Does he rotate them? If so, 2.7 million. Again, that's a bit of money for someone that you potentially think is going to sit on the subs bench.
He's got add-ons as well.
Unanswered. Yeah, absolutely. I can go up to 4 something, isn't it? Yeah. So, I think there's an awful lot of risk in that. If it works, we're all going to be delighted. We'll be calling Kevin Felwell the next Messiah, all that kind of nonsense. If it fails, then instantly people are going to be saying, well, duh, he didn't score in 2 years and scored like 3 senior goals. Everything that we're kind of seeing at the minute will just be trotted out and used against him. So it's very much a watching brief for me. I think we need to see how he settles into Scottish football.
Yep.
Aside from his physicality, is he robust enough? Which is obviously a slightly different thing for Scottish football. And can he find the goal scoring trail? Because I don't care how much work he does off the ball. If you've got an 8 million striker, you better believe the fans are expecting him to score goals. As far as the value goes, I'm going to go back to my original question's answer, and I'm going to say Gassama again. I think there is potentially a real gem in there, as long as we sort of give him a proper opportunity to showcase what he can do. Again, that comes back to the manager, the setup, all that kind of good stuff. But I'm pretty confident with him that we're going to make a fairly significant profit when it does come to selling him.
Absolutely, definite potential there. Last question for Arrivals then, just a real quick one I'll throw out to each of you is, what name were we linked with that we didn't sign? Do you wish we had, John?
Turgeman. Yeah,
it
was the one striker that knew of the potential and I thought could fit into this system and how we want to play. So he was the one that I was disappointed with.
And Dave? That's a red card now.
Yeah, okay. See you later. No,
or orange card?
We weren't linked to him, but we were at the same time, and it's Journey. I think he moved relatively cheap, and he's a proven goal scoring record in the league. And it felt like a wee bit of a mix, even if he wasn't necessarily going to be your main number one winger. You'd have thought having someone like that in would be hell of a good competition for these guys. But, clearly Martin didn't fancy him. We move on.
That's 18 goals and 9 assists last season. That's a significant amount to lose. So we need to hope that the new guys can cover that. I think both of those are good answers. I would happily have taken both of those. I think for me, now his name's totally gone. The Dundee lad that went to Hibs,
Josh Mulligan.
There we go. That's it. I think, given how Anne's has turned out, I would have quite liked to have seen him come in. He's versatile, he play midfield and right back. I think he would have been a good long-term option as well. So even if he didn't play quite as often this season, he would, in my mind, could have become our first choice right back from next season on. And as I say, he's been playing really well for Hibs, so that feels like a little bit like one that kind of got away. So for me, I'm going to say Mulligan. Okay, so we'll flip the coin to the other side then and have a look at the departures list, which is even bigger. And I didn't actually realize this until this morning, but I haven't actually included Cherney on this list, and he should actually technically be there, as he did leave at the tail end of a loan. So we'll sort of asterisk Cherney into the bottom of that list. Again, a significant list here, John, of players. I think there's a few talking points here. Obviously, the Hamza Egeman saga ended a bit sourly, but we've gotten a good fee for him. Jeff Day is one of the best sales we've made in a long, long time. He's up there. I think the last sale I said yesterday, the last time I think we made a sale that was that good in terms of the kind of flip in value was Sakala, who we brought in for 3 and sold for 5. And Jeff Day we've obviously brought in for, I think it was about 600,000 and sold for 6.5. The kind of talking point, I suppose, I'll start with is the fact that we sold all 3 of our first team left backs, and we are now, as we'll see in our next slide after, sitting with a rather bare bones left hand side. We don't even have like a youth prospect left back really sitting there. Cornelius apparently can play there. He's obviously our new left sided centre back, but ideally I would like him to be the left sided centre back. So yeah, what's your kind of thoughts on that? Did we just have to take advantage of the fact that we got offers in for these players and it was a good time to sell them, or do you think we've potentially made a hiccup there?
I think the Yefty one is right time, right place. I think Yilmaz and Robbie Fraser were probably, the thought process was to let them go and move them on, but that kind of money for Yefty's, I like Yefty. I thought there was a lot of good potential there. Played far too much last season. Should have had a first choice left back ahead of him, but you can't knock that kind of money back. I think slightly disappointing we've not brought in another left back. I think we'll probably get to that in a bit more detail at times, but yeah, letting 3 out, 1 in on loan. You'd probably rather see 1 coming in as a permanent signing as well.
Absolutely. Dave, come to you with another point. We had one very, very sad member of the team last night with one of our departures. And we've got another member of the team in the chat here saying, should have kept Dessers, in my opinion. You're a known, shall we say, Dessers skeptic. What's your thoughts? Given, obviously, we brought in Miovski, who, he's proven in the league, but has had a dry spot. So we're hoping that he'll return to previous form. And then we've obviously brought in this player that we're not 100% sure of. And our other striker is Danilo, who's, he's been working hard, bless him, but it's just not happening for him. Are we taking a risk? I mentioned there we're losing 18 goals with Czerny. I think it was 16 goals we lost with Egeman, and then obviously Cyril Dessers, the league's top scorer. Was it a mistake to let him go, or again was it just a case of right time, right timing, and good price?
So I think first off, you need to split those two things up, right? So regardless of who we'd replaced him with, it was absolutely time to move Cyril Dessers on. There's issues around reliability, obviously, that we've all kind of talked about, we've all seen. There's his age, right? He's getting on in his career. And the fact we got 3.5 million for him's not bad business. We've had him for a few seasons, scored a decent amount of goals, and he's moved on and we've recouped our money. So that, for me in of itself, was good business. The problem then becomes who you've replaced him with. And I think the jury's very much out on that at the minute. I would have preferred that with some of that money, we bought in at least one kind of proven goal scorer. I think Miovski, absolutely, he's done the business in the league, but that was a few years ago, right? His last season, he's barely kicked a ball. Chermiti, the last 2 seasons, he's barely kicked a goal. Kicked a ball. So,
or kicked a goal.
You can question. Or kicked a goal, or anything really. You just kind of lay about. So I think you can question the recruitment, absolutely. As far as Dessers goes, do you know what? Yeah, I have been quite harsh on him. He did a job for us. He did what he was meant to do. He came here. In his defence, he was pretty much always fit and available as well. So I'll give him that. But I think it was just the right time, mate. Time to move on. Time to upgrade. As I said, the question now is, have they upgraded or not?
Absolutely. The time comes for every player, unfortunately. I'll ask you both this one as well as a wee quick fire. Who on the list there, John, are you most happy to see the back of?
Ben Davies, probably. I know it's only a loan, but last year his contract, it feels like
effectively
a relic.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like a relic from a bad time, and that's it. You can finally put it behind you now.
And yourself, Dave?
I'm just going to cause controversy here, mate. Hamza Egeman.
Right. Well, as I said, he did leave in bad terms. So
exactly, and do you know what? Maybe he did have his differences with Martin. Maybe they had a falling out. Whatever, right? Him refusing to come on and play. It might have hurt Martin a bit, but realistically, he was sticking a middle finger up at the fans that pay his wages, right? So for me, if that's your attitude, if that's your mentality, I don't want you at my club. So good luck to him in Lille. He got his move that he wanted. Hope it works out and we get a nice wee sell on off the back of it. But, an attitude like that isn't going to help you in life. It's not going to help you in professional football. And I think he actually let himself down quite a bit. I think if he'd just gone on that game, right, nobody would care. They'd have wished him well on his move. All right, you've got to move to bigger league. Good on you. Well done, etc. It's the circumstances around how he forced that move that, for me, I think is disruptive, and I'm glad it's gone now.
I don't think there's too much to argue with there. I'm going to go with John's pick and say Ben Davies as well. I think just given the the age profile and, well, I say the wages, we're probably still paying most, if not all of them, to be honest, because Oxford will not be covering that. But I think good to just kind of get that space freed up. I think there's another burning question which some people in the chat have touched upon, which is the who's not on that list. But we'll come to that as on the next slide, I think, as they will appear on this list. So, squad depth. So I've got some of the main people who have left along the top, not the full exhaustive list. On the left there, we've got our players that are still Rangers players but are out on loan. And then obviously on the pitch there, we've got the players that are still at the club. So blue are just our sort of ongoing contracted players. Players in orange are new signings, and the players in red are probably, well, they're all new signings as well, but they're the ones that are on loan. So we've made 5 loans this season, out of a maximum of 6. So we have sort of use that to almost the best of its ability. Quite a few of them, obviously, in fact, all but one of them in the defence, which I know a few people are worried about, and we'll touch on that in a wee moment. I've deliberately laid it out, guys, with kind of all the players there rather than just like the formation in the list, because I wanted to really see visually the kind of lopsidedness that exists in this. Obviously left back and right wing, I think, kind of the opposing opposites. We're light on both sides. Megoma there, obviously all on his own, and Ant-Man, given that he's got Matondo beside him, might as well be on his own, given his injury worries. So I think the issues there are quite obvious in terms of the potential to have covered them a bit better. The right side of the right side of attack isn't quite as bad because we've got various players that can play there. All 3 guys on the left could play on the right if they needed to. Dare I whisper his name quietly? Kieran Dowell can play on the right if needed. Asgard can probably play there as well. In fact, Cameron could probably play there. Barami. You could put any of these players there, so that's not necessarily a problem. But John, I think the big issue, and forgive me for putting words in your mouth, and do correct me if you think that I'm wrong, but I think the biggest issue is we really should have brought in another left-sided fullback. So if we just say that that's the obvious one, is there anywhere else that you yourself would have liked to have maybe seen, either not necessarily more bodies, but maybe just a change in personnel, or that we need more quality in?
Wide right, certainly. I was shocked that even somebody out in on loan for wide right didn't happen. I think there is a growing concern at right back as well as left back, though. Aarons doesn't look up to it. We're relying on Tavia again, and Sterling, will he ever be fit to play 5 games in a row when he eventually comes back from this injury? So I think there's still a concern there, both sides of fullback for me.
And same question to yourself, Dave.
So, to be honest, I think I'm with John. I think the fullbacks are probably the biggest worry for me. Makoma, well, it's Rangers. You know what our injury history's like. The fact that we've got one player and then we're into square pegs and round holes territory doesn't fill me with confidence. Tav, I think, has probably been our best right back this season, but that's really not a high bar. As John said, Sterling, fine, he comes back, but is he going to stay there? Debatable. Aaron's, for me, sold the jersey. I'd quite happily not see him again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have concerns there. I've seen in the comments a few times now, and I think the first person that mentioned it was Gordon here, asking about Jamal Lewis. Jamal Lewis is currently a free agent. Obviously, does play left back, can play midfield. Former Newcastle player. Is he, John? Is he someone that you would potentially like to see brought in on a free transfer? He does have, I would say, a pretty concerning injury list, which is why he will be still unsigned, in my opinion. Because I think if you go and look at those lists of players that are one on frees, there's a lot of players that you go, oh, he's a great player, but it's when you look at those injury lists that tend to be the issue, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I think as much as I'm concerned about it right now, I'm probably now of the opinion, leave the free transfers, the guys who still don't have a contract, and focusing on, right, what do we want in January? Let's properly come up with here is a first choice left back that we want. Go after him in January if you can. Or at that point, bring in somebody else to back up Magoma.
Dave, we've got a wee question from Paul here. Do you think we should have took a punt on Casson Virgil? Obviously, we had a loan spell from him. He looked really good for the time that he played. Giant asterisks, but then he got injured, and obviously we've not taken him back since. I haven't looked at him in a month or two, but the last time I looked at him, he had gotten injured again after us. So I'm not again. I think there's possible concerns there, but is he a player that you'd be interested in?
No, purely for that reason. If you look at his injury history prior to even joining us, it wasn't great reading. I think, take him on loan, see how he gets on in Scotland. Absolutely made sense. We got our answer. Decent player when he was fit and available, but how many Rangers players have we said that about over the years? I think, yes, we obviously need quality and skill, but we also need athleticism and robustness for this league. Unfortunately, I don't think Casa was the answer there.
Yeah, I've just pulled up his profile in the background there. He obviously got the knee injury with ourselves. He was out for from the November 24 to May 25. He then went back to his parent club. He was injured again for the whole month of July, and he's now currently at Molde on loan. So we'll see how he gets on over there. I hope he does well. As I say, I thought he was a really good player. Did look really good. I kind of file him a bit like Sterling. Sterling's a great player, but he's just not fit enough frequently enough, unfortunately. But as I say, hopefully he will be able to come in and provide a bit of extra cover as we go through. Okay, look. Let's see. I give my thoughts on what disaster. I think centrally, I think we're looking really good. Sort of top to bottom, really. We've got a decent set of keepers. We've got a couple of decent centre backs there. I hope that with Enciala having ended up staying, that he's not just totally frozen out and forgotten. I hope that Martin allows him to have a fair shake and come into the team if he warrants it. I thought he showed enough for me to be in and about it, and I'd have been really disappointed if we'd sold him. I thought when he was linked away with a loan, I thought, okay, well maybe that could work. He could go out and loan, improve, and then maybe come back, and whoever our next manager is, cough cough, could get something else out of him. But we'll see. Cornelius looks interesting. He's friends with John Arfield, Scott Arfield. So anyone that's friends with Scott Arfield has to be a winner. So that's a good plus. But yeah, I think I'm with John. I'd like to maybe have seen someone else on that right side, and then obviously left back as well. Okay, so the next aspect I've got here is our squad age profile. We've talked about this over the years. There was a period of time, particularly after the sort of European run, where we had a really kind of aging squad. We had a lot of there was a lot of older players in there, like Tav and Goldson, Lundstrom, obviously Alan McGregor, and we've kind of slowly moved past that. And I do think that one thing we've done well in the years since is improved the age balance of the team. And this window has really, I think, pushed that to the youngest it's been in a while. So the average squad age all in is now sitting at 24.2, and the average age of our new signings is 22.9 years old. So that's obviously a really young base looking at it. And even that, it's pushed ever so slightly by Miovski and Rothwell, who are kind of on the older end there. Pretty much everyone else is in that kind of 25 or younger spot. Looking at that, John, are you happy with the balance? You touched, I think it was you that touched earlier on the fact that there was a lot of fans that were looking for a bit more experience in the team. So obviously we brought in Miovski, who's got experience in the league. He's a bit older, so he's a relatively experienced player. Cornelius is a little bit older for that defensive area, so maybe a little bit more leadership in there. Do you think we could have used more in the center of the park? If you're looking in that middle area, it's all the main starters are the younger ones, really, apart from maybe Rothwell, but he doesn't necessarily seem like the kind of leadership type. Is that an area you'd maybe have liked to see more in, or indeed are you one of the ones who are asking for captain?
Probably somewhere in the middle. I think from an age profile, I think it's really good what we've done. We've tried to kind of decrease that, get a more youthful aspect to it. I think from experience, from my point of view, is not about the age that the player is. It's what have they done in their time. We could have went and signed Lennon Miller, who's played more games than a certain amount of players who are 22, 23 years old, but he's 18. Look at Cornelius as an example. He's won league titles. He's got that winning experience that he can bring in there and say, right, this is what it takes to win titles, to win cups. That kind of experience to me is what this team is and squad is really missing. And it doesn't matter what age they are. I would like to see maybe like to see more people come in who have a background in winning leagues, whether that's in Denmark, Slovakia, Slovenia, wherever it is, winning things. So I don't think the age has been the thing. I think we've just missed maybe bringing in people who've experience of winning leagues and know what it takes to get through a season and do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. What about yourself, Dave? What's your thoughts on where we are sitting with the squad now, age-wise?
Well, firstly, I'm kind of wondering what that pensioner at right back's doing, Doug.
Getting on a bit.
No, so yeah. I think it's only good to lower the age profile when limits. You alluded to the squad that we did have not so long ago being the other end of that scale. I think really John summed it up actually beautifully. Experience doesn't equal age, right? You can be 18. You can have all sorts of experience. As Lamine Yamal, as an example, right? He's young. Look at some of the moments he's had already in football. So I think my problem maybe with the signings that we've bought in is a fair few of them don't have much experience. So Makoma, Moore, Fernandez, they don't have masses of experience behind them. Can they build that at Rangers? Let's find out. As far as the age itself goes, though, I think we're probably in quite a good place there now, Doug. The trick is obviously get them performing, flip them for a profit, get more younger folk in.
Absolutely. Got a wee question here from Neil. Just saying, I don't know how long Sterling will be injured for. It's meant to be end of October that he's due back, so not too long away now. So we'll hopefully, as I say, obviously see him back in training in the next maybe month or so, and then hopefully, obviously, as you say, he'll be then available to back up the entire team as he is capable of doing, playing everywhere and anywhere. I put it up just a second ago, but the gaffer's back on the run. He's done the road to 4,000, so the road to 5,000 begins today. So if you're not currently watching, you're not currently subscribed, you're enjoying what you see, please do think about hitting the subscribe button and knocking that little notifications bell, which will tell you when we go live or when we upload a video, which is almost every day of the week. We have live shows Monday to Friday, occasionally at weekends as well. Pre and post-match shows for every game that Rangers play, as well as other various content covering things like tactics and scouting, looking at players that we could sign, and looking at our opponents as and when they come up. So loads of great content for you to see if you'd like to join us on the journey to 56. I think the guys have brought up some really good points there. We had a conversation in one of the chats, I think it was last week, the week before, about experience and the elements about that, things that, age in itself brings a level of experience, but there's also quality of experience, which is what kind of John touched on there. You can be in European finals when you're 16, 17, like Yamal has done, and have that experience at a young age, as well as, just having maybe played across multiple leagues like a Dessers by the time you're in your 30s. There's also then wisdom, I think, that comes into experience as well. How much wisdom do you have to learn lessons when you're 16, 17 from the experiences that you're having compared to maybe later on? So there's loads of things that go into it. It's definitely more than just an age thing. One of the things I like that I'll accompany you guys on, that I think the age does come into it on a more practical level, is that we've signed assets, players that we can, obviously we had the slide up earlier that showed a lot of the values of the players that we purchased. Many of them, I'll pop it back up very quickly. Many of these players are sitting there, 4 million, 3 million, 3 million, just over 2, 3 and a bit million, 2 million. A lot of these players are reasonable, but not crazy values, and players that we can potentially flip if they play well. And with the ages brackets that we're bringing in, it gives them that time to do that. Different positions have different kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Like peak ages. So for your goalkeepers, you're looking at north of 28 for goalkeepers hitting their peak. Defenders are kind of bang on, maybe 28 hitting into their 30s nowadays, as well as players play on longer. Midfielders are that kind of more mid to late 20s. Wingers kind of similar when you're still got a little bit of that exuberance of youth in you for your pacey runs and whatnots. And strikers tend to be kind of late 20s as well, as that combination of physical prowess and mental prowess kind of come together. Are you happy, John, in terms of thinking about it in terms of the transfer model? And obviously, so for example, if we look at JFT, he was only here for 12 months. Some of these players could potentially be gone in a year's time. Is that something that we're going to hopefully need to get more used to, as we've now got, again, I'm going to use the word hopefully a lot in this segment. Hopefully, people that own the club now that can really push this model and actually get it to work, because we've kind of seen a lot of false dawns over the last few years. Whereas now I'm looking at that going, almost everyone there is in their early 20s. So there's loads of people there that can be here for a year or two and then be sold for a profit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what we want to get used to as well, is that £600,000 signing that you can flip quite quickly, and even if it is around the £2, £3, £4 million mark, it keeps the churn going of your kind of revenue, in terms of not every player needs to be a record sale, not every player needs to be a world beater and earning you £8, £10 million. Those smaller transfers are what keeps it all going and makes sure that you're not spend a fortune every time and you're having losses and things like that. So yeah, I think it's the more transfers we can see like that, the better.
And what about yourself, Dave? What's your thoughts? Point. I just happened to bring this up at this point. Didn't do this deliberately. I promise. But Blue makes a good point. We've got there the oldest player in the squad, and he's shown a significantly above average level of fitness. Is that something as well that you want to see from these new signings? People that are available the majority of the time. One thing that Clement said a lot of things that were maybe questionable, but one thing that I did agree with him that he said is that we should have a squad of like 90% players. 90% of the players should be available 80% of the time, or maybe the other way around. But one of the two. Is that something that we also want to see from ideally bringing in younger, fitter players? Is that they're going to be a bit more robust?
100%, mate. For how long have we bemoaned, player X is really good player when they're fit. Roof, Sterling, Yilmaz, 3 very immediate examples just recently. And that's been going on for as long as I can remember. And it's not sustainable. You can see as we go through a season, these injuries start to take hold. You see results starting to dip off because it's the same players getting run into the ground. Just on the Tav point, right? I did say I do think he's been our best right back of this season. I don't think Aarons has shown much, and to be fair, he's kind of had that about him the last few seasons. Someone's come in, put up a challenge, he's kind of risen to it, and in a lot of cases that was the thing with Sterling. He was going to take his place. Sterling's got an injury record, Tav doesn't. Last season, we had the same with Kasim Werjo, who we've already talked about. Exact same thing. He got injured. Tav came back into the side. And honestly, I don't think it'll be because of injury, but I think the same will happen again this season because Aarons is terrible. The gaffer's here. I can't say what I want to say, but yeah, I think he'll do the same again this season. Is that a good thing? No, We should, especially at that age now, and I know you agree with us, Doug, 'cause we've had this chat before, but we should be bringing in his successor and bedding them in, starting to rotate between the two of them. And instead, we've got Fix-It Max Aarons on loan, who's terrible.
Yep, absolutely. I did think, and it did seem in the early couple of weeks of the season that was what we were going to get, but obviously Aarons thus far has not really hit the heights. Early days, so maybe he turns it around, but I know a lot of fans are very much have him in the sin bin right now, given that last performance in Europe. So we shall see. You want to add something there, Dave?
Yeah, I was just going to say that opinion isn't based on just the last game. I don't think he's shown it in any of the games he's played, and I was willing to give him a bit of a buy in the games where he was playing at left back because he was out of position. But even since he's moved over to right back, I don't think he's shown anything. I was particularly incensed after the last game, agreed, but I think through his whole time here, he's got to do an awful lot more to dislodge Tav.
Yep. On the point of Tav, John, I don't want to stay on too long. But a question was put out to the group last night by Ryan, who is a known, I think it's fair to say, a known Tav skeptic as well. And I thought it was kind of ironic because I answered no, and all three other people answered yes, with the asterisk that was how they feel right now at this point of the season, and it could change. But the same question or the same notion has come up in the chat here, which is, I wouldn't be against Tav getting a 1-year extension. What's your thoughts on that at this point? In terms of your thoughts at this point of the season, and then maybe just more holistically in terms of the squad?
No, it wouldn't be for me. I think when we talk about Tav, we can talk about Dessers and those two in the same kind of light. It was their time to get moved on, but just in terms of game time, we have this problem around who we're replacing them with. And if we replace them with somebody who just isn't up to it, we kind of revert back to, well, he was never the problem. We should get him back in and extend his contract and all these things. And it's like, no, we just need to replace him in the right way, which we've not done with Max Aarons. Talking about Josh Mulligan, it's a great example of somebody who could have come in, taken Tav out of the team, and we wouldn't be sitting thinking this. We were like, right, this is great for Tav to run his last year down, waved into the sunset with all our thanks. So I think that recruitment piece is what brings you back to that.
Yep. Dave, coming to you on that one. As I say, I, much to Ryan's surprise, said no. I don't actually think Tav should get an extension, as much as it hurts me deep in the soul to say it. Would you agree with that point, or right now, do you think unless we do something else that he would be the best option?
I mean, yourself and Nicky in the comments there have just nailed it, to be honest. The real key is replacing him properly. I think, heading into next season, obviously right back, you need a good engine, which he has had throughout his career, but he's going to be 34 next season. He is, I'm not going to say he's awful all of a sudden. I know that's a bit of an easy out, but he has slowed a little bit, I would suggest, from maybe what he was 5 years ago. So I think the time is right for Tav to go. The onus is then on, Felwell, Martin, Purdy, etc., to find a suitable replacement for him. I also think, to be honest, a lot of fans are maybe going to have to readjust their expectations of that role. You've had Tav bombing along for so long, assists, goals galore. Tav's a pretty unusual right back. Not many become the top British goal scoring defender. Not many see out 10 plus years at a club like Rangers. He has done well, right? He's got his critics, and there's times I've been frustrated with him. I'm sure everyone has, but over the piece of it, he has done well. And I get the accusation he hasn't won a lot of trophies, but look at the rest of the team that he's been playing in. You know what I mean? There's been times where he has been close on our top scorer, top assists, right? Where are you replacing those numbers from? And that's the problem that I think the club are going to have is so well and good slating him when he's here, but when he's gone and you're not getting that input, who's going to replace it in the squad?
Absolutely. For me, Dav is a generational talent. He's one of those players that comes all along every so often. Like you say, it's not just few people become the most high scoring. Only one person can become the high scoring fullback or defender, in fact, in the UK, and that's free to behold. This is someone that, in terms of, we talked about, obviously, robustness. He averages 50 plus games a season, which over a decade is genuinely ludicrous. He's always fit, he's always ready, whether he's playing well or not. So there's a lot there. And he is going to, I think I forget the exact number, it's only about 4 or 5 games now, or 4 or 5 appearances, I should say, and he will be in Rangers' top 10 appearances of all time. Which again is another thing that will be kind of added to his individual list, which is vast. Unfortunately, the team list is not quite as rosy. But anyway, Paul, I was trying to type it out there, but it'll be easier for me to just talk to you directly. Paul, in the chat there, you mentioned a question about contracts. We are going to be going on to talk about contracts in a wee second, so we will cover that shortly. Let me just dig it back out here for you, John. Had a question for the right back here. What about turning Barron into a right back? High energy, not slow, listens to tactics, and good positioning, good on the ball. What's your thoughts on that one from John?
I don't like square pegs and round holes, and I don't like shuffling players into positions they don't naturally play in. So even like with Cornelius, people are saying, well, he could play left back. He's a left-sided centre back. Don't do that with him. I think Barron came on a game on Sunday. Thought there was moments in his performance that looked quite good. I would rather be trying to get him to learn the tactics and learn the way to play in that midfield role so he can grow into that and not try to confuse him. We go back to the Alloa game with Bailey Rice putting a midfielder at full-back position who doesn't know how to play it. Just didn't work out well. And I don't think that would do Connor Barron any favours.
How about yourself, Dave?
Absolutely not. For all the reasons that John's listed there, square pegs, round holes. Why don't we just go out and buy a decent right back? Strange concept, I know, but that could be the answer.
On that exact little point, someone's popped in a question here, so I'll put this to use as well. Bring Nathan Patterson back. What's your thoughts on that one, Dave?
Well, it's not going to be on a permanent, is it? As a loan for a year, maybe wouldn't have been opposed to it, and certainly doubt he'd have been any worse than Aaron's. I think there's always that school of thought that you shouldn't go back. You shouldn't get people that've been here before, but I think for a season we maybe could have done each other a turn. Him coming in on loan would have given him a place to showcase his talents again. For us, we get a decent quality right back. There's not a huge amount of risk because it's only a loan, so I think it could have been a winner, but again, ultimately Martin didn't want him or Felwell didn't want him, so we move on.
Absolutely. Got a question here from Tom saying, did someone say Cornelius could fill in at left back? Yes, that was me. Maybe someone else, I don't know. But I mentioned earlier on, he has played there before. And obviously he's a left-sided player, so that is something he could probably do if an emergency came about. But let's hope that Migoma keeps fit throughout. Okay, John, I'll take you into our sort of last of our main slides tonight, which is contract status. We'll not spend too much time on this one because contracts are boring, but this kind of gives us an idea. This is from this season, how many years each player has left on their contract. So I think the thing that immediately stands out for me here is that these are all pretty reasonably small numbers. You've got a couple of 4 years in there from some of the brand new signings, but there's quite a lot of 2s and 1s in there. So again, you're probably looking at I think a positive in terms of, for example, everyone's favourite sort of black sheep right now, Matondo. He's only got the 1 year left, so we've only 12 months to go. People, hold on. But then you've got obviously a couple of other players there who, we're going to get to that point where we're going to have to make decisions. Raskin's been the one that I think has been talked about the most. That 2 year point is obviously the kind of sweet spot in terms of selling players. So, in a year's time, all those threes will be in that sweet spot. So players like Barron, Rothwell, Diomande, Cameron, Danilo, they're all players that we will be making decisions on. And I think there's a reasonable spread there as well. Not everyone's running out at the same time kind of thing as well. Is there anyone there that kind of stands out for you that you think there's going to be big decisions to make? And do you think we've got a good spread there in terms of the contract ending and when they end?
I think in terms of decisions, Diamandi is going to become one this season. I think in terms of what do you do, because I imagine this season he'll get his peak value in terms of resale for us, and he's maybe not fitting in this system right now as well as he possibly could have, but certainly as well as I thought he would. Raskin, I thought he was gone. I thought that 2 years left on his deal, whether he was interested in signing a new deal or not, I thought he would go, because you think about going to next year, you just run the risk of injuries and things that can kick in. So now he's fit, he's in a good form in terms of the national team, he would go. So I think those two, what happens with them in the next 12 months will be interesting. I think the back five positions in terms of contract length is a real worry. Midfield forwards, you've got 2, 3, 4s that are there that could be quite settled potentially for a couple of years. Goalkeeper and defence, you're looking at one player, Fernandez, with a longer term contract. Other than that, you're going to lose potentially a lot at the end of this season. And then you're into Butland's last year. So there's a lot of change potentially there.
Absolutely, Dave. John's kind of picked up the main thing there. Defence. I think people were already kind of had that in their eyesight with the fact we've got 4 loan players in that. But the one that kind of caught me by surprise when I was putting the slide together was we've also got 2 goalkeepers coming to the end of their contracts as well. So, like John said, a lot of potential movement going on if we don't sign any of these players we've got on loan.
Yeah, I think there is, Doug. I mean, just looking at the keepers, you imagine Kelly might not be too opposed to signing a year extension. Potentially knocks that one out. You've Mason Munn to come back in, have you not? He was loan out, was he, or was he permanent?
Good question. I can't quite remember. Let me.
He's a loan.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
So it was a loan. Yeah.
And we do actually have a 4th goalkeeper there as well that I've not included.
Budinukas or whatever he's called. Yeah. I think the defence is the obvious worry. You've 4 loan players going out. You've then got Suter and Tav. Tav, I think, will go. Suter remains to be seen. I know there was some discussion whether he would sign another contract. King, you have to imagine, can't be far off going. If always a question mark. Nsiala and King were both told they weren't wanted as well. So, if he doesn't integrate them in the stake of claim, then I imagine they go back in the shop window and come winter. I think it's good. There's a few like Matondo and Dowell that are like the proverbial turds that won't flush. So we're going to see the back of them, which will be nice. I guess the other one that you've already kind of touched on is Raskin. I actually think we're in a really dodgy position with him now, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Next opportunity to sell him, he's got 18 months left on his contract. As far as we know at the minute, he's in the middle of an ongoing feud with a man that, by all accounts and purposes, isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Whether we like that or not, supposedly the board have openly said that this is a long-term project and we're staying with him. So how we handle that, I think, will potentially be the most interesting out of all these. If you can't get him to sign an extension, I think you have to sell him in the winter window. You leave it till the summer and you're taking millions off his value. World Cup or no World Cup. So yeah, that's it for me. As I said, Phil, I will be delighted to see the back of Dowell and Madondo, as long as Martin doesn't give Dowell an extension, which I wouldn't put past him.
Thanks for setting us all up for nightmares tonight, there, Dave. But yeah, I think most people would agree with you there. We'll just sit there, Mark. So we'll be wrapping up now. We've got one question left from the chat, so we'll just finish with that. Just a quick answer from you on this one, John. Blue Jays asking, with Cornelius as the left centre back, who are you partnering him with, Jigga, Soapy, or someone else?
Jigga.
And Dave?
Right now, Suter. I think Jigga is the better defender, but he's been well off it recently. Suter has looked more attuned to the defence. So right now, Suter. However, probably longer term, Jigga.
Okay, look. So it's been another great pod. Lots of great opinions from the guys there. Lots of good comments from everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us and watching tonight. Just as I talk us all out, I'll pop up this last slide that we didn't get time to get to, that just shows you last season's team against what could be this season's team, so you can look at that as we finish and decide if you think that's a win. John, thanks for joining us tonight. One word answer: have we improved, yes or no?
No.
Okay, and thanks for joining us this evening.
Cheers.
And Dave, have we improved, yes or no?
TBC.
That's not yes or no.
Well, you only gave me one word. I think the players are better. I think the system's worse. There you go.
That's fair. That's fair. There was someone that asked whether or not we thought Martin could turn it around. That's a big question that we don't have time to address today, and I'm sure we'll have some pods that will talk about that. Yeah, exactly. That's a whole pod in itself, and I'm sure we will. In fact, we will probably have that pod at some point over the next 2 weeks. This is a big time for Martin now to bring in these new players, work with them over the international break as best he can, and as I say, come into these 2 big games, hopefully for a win. As I say, thanks everyone for watching. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button to join us on our journey as we follow Rangers through out the season. Loads of great content throughout the week on matches and beyond. Thanks for the guys for joining me. Thanks everyone in the chat, and it just remains for me to say that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Thanks, guys.